Good evening, everyone. We're going to get started. Just to note that this meeting is being recorded. So my name is Bartek Stardai. I'm the Director of Housing Initiatives for the City of Kingston, and I'm representing the lead agency of this process tonight, which is the City of Kingston Common Council. This is the public hearing for the draft generic environmental impact statement for the Kingston Forward rezoning project. We are going to do, the purpose of tonight is a public hearing. I am just going to go through a few slides to explain the purpose of the environmental impact statement. And because this meeting is being recorded, this is for the benefit of those attending or watching tonight, but also for those that will be submitting written comment on this process. So what are we doing tonight? The City of Kingston is currently proposing the adoption of a citywide form-based code. This is the proposed action. The process for creating that form-based code has been occurring for the better almost 2 years now. And there are many different teams that have been part of this process. The City of Kingston, of course, the team lead for the process is Dover Cole, but then there are multiple other parties, LaBerge Group, Pace Land Use Law Center, among many others. Now, in terms of the form-based code, the State Environmental Quality Review Act requires us to carefully examine the potential environmental, social, and economic impacts of the citywide form-based code adoption. The City of Kingston Common Council has already accepted a draft generic environmental impact statement, the DGEIS. This considers all the potential environmental impacts and issues of the form-based code, and it also discusses all reasonable project alternatives that were identified in the final scoping document. I'll also add that the DGEIS recommends mitigation measures where there might be impacts. The DGEIS also reviews the cumulative impact, irreversible resource commitments, and unavoidable adverse impacts of the adoption of the form-based code. It also reviews two identified project alternatives, one of which is no action, and the other is higher densities in certain transect areas. The DGEIS covers several different topics in terms of impacts and mitigation measures. So these include geology, soils and topography, plants and animal resources, water resources, open space and recreation, land use, historic resources, socioeconomics, transportation and parking, consistency with community character, energy use, air resources and noise, community services and infrastructure, and finally, consistency with other community plans. Wrapping up here, what happens next? So tonight is the official public hearing for the DGEIS. However, written public comments will be accepted until April 10th. These comments will inform the development of a final generic environmental impact statement, as well as the creation of a finding statement by the Common Council. I would like to note that we will categorize and respond to all substantive comments that are given tonight or through via written public comments. We do expect that the final generic environmental impact statement will be submitted approximately 45 days of the close of public comment. When that happens, everything will be posted on engagekingston.com/Kingston-forward. That is also where you can read the DGEIS, that is the subject of tonight's public hearing, and also the written public comment period. That concludes the presentation part of tonight, and I'm going to move to public speakers. We're going to start in chambers, and then we will move on to Zoom. If you're on Zoom and would like to speak, you can raise your hand at any time. But I'm going to start with chambers. I would just like to note that you have 3 minutes to speak. And when you come up, if you could repeat your name, an affiliation, and address in the city of Kingston, if applicable. The first speaker is Nanette Bourne.
Good evening. My name is Nanette Bourne, and I live at 16 Hemlock Place in New Rochelle. And I'm a planning consultant working on behalf of the William Gottlieb Real Estate. And I was asked to review the DGEIS for the form-based code and would like to present some general comments this evening. And I'll follow up with some more specific comments in writing following this meeting. And first of all, let me state up front that my client supports the city's transition to a form-based code that will enable big ideas and encourage new investment in the city. And it's my client's expectation that the proposed form-based code will make it possible for a new respect for the unique character of the city and cultivate the preservation and enhancement of the many distinct neighborhoods in the city of Kingston. And in addition, we appreciate the considerable time given to us by the city staff and their consultants throughout this process as we watch the form-based code evolve. And it's within this spirit that we provide the following comments. First, the analysis in the DGIS is based upon a standalone land use study done by Gridix, which is in Appendix 3 in the GEIS. The Gridix study is the backbone of the analysis, and it analyzes all of the parcels within the city and calculates the existing and proposed zoning capacity under the proposed form-based code. However, the Gridix study appears to exclude from its analysis the 502 parcels within historic designation and the 46 parcels eligible for an historic designation. This is on page 6 in the appendix. And this would appear to exclude both the Stockade District and the Rondout District from the analysis of impacts, even though the Stockade District is proposed to be within the T5 Transect District, where the DGEIS notes on page 133 that the higher level of form-based code influenced growth will generally be directed to occur within cores where T5 and T4 are centered. The Gridix study also appears to analyze potential growth for residential uses, but does not analyze the potential growth for non-residential uses. And I wonder, was this intentional? Finally, the Gridix study calculates the potential build-out under current zoning by calculating the full build-out of the 7,334 non-excluded parcels. And I'm quoting from page 9 of the Gridix study. They do this as if each parcel can be developed to its maximum potential and does not take into consideration existing built structures, specific environmental constraints, or market demand. So the analysis does not calculate a reasonable...
30 seconds.
Pardon?
30 seconds.
So the analysis does not calculate a reasonable full build-out, but calculates what would happen if every lot in the city were developed to its maximum. And my concern is whether this approach overestimates what could be built under existing zoning and then underestimates the difference between existing zoning and the full build-out. And again, we appreciate the time, effort, and resources that the city has committed to this process, and we hope our comments can be used to improve the seeker analysis so the city's new zoning can be enacted as quickly as possible. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers in chambers? I'm going to move on to speakers on Zoom. And Eileen, if you'd like to speak.
Bartek, are you speaking to me?
Yes,
Eileen
and we can
Katatsky?
hear you.
Yes, yes. I've submitted my comments in a written form, but something has occurred to me, and I hope that they'll be read and considered. And I also appreciate the time and effort that folks have put into this enormous effort. Today, it occurred to me about taxes. And I hadn't thought about this until now, and forgive me if my thoughts aren't very clear. But we have homestead and non-homestead, and it seems that homestead right now carries most of the burden of the tax for the city of Kingston. And of course, there's a differential because of the value per thousand for homestead, non-homestead, but still the homestead carries the burden. If your home is devalued because of certain structures that are built near you, and your assessment should change, this is a concern not only for mortgage holders, but for people who, it's a concern for the homeowner. And if indeed you must continue to pay taxes and the building next door has a consideration for affordable housing and has a tax benefit, will the homestead structures have to pick up the difference? And so this is something that I've just thought of today, and I hope I would like some clarity on what will happen with the assessments as multi-use structures are integrated into our single-family home structure, neighborhoods, and so forth. So I feel great concern about how this will play out. And I would like some clarity from the city as to how they see this going forward. And again, Bartek, thank you for your work and for the work of all the committees and the consultants. But this is a serious matter. I hope that the Common Council will take it under consideration and review my written comments as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Cheryl Snyder.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Good evening. My name is Cheryl Schneider. I love Kingston. It's been sort of the center of my universe for almost 30 years. I think the allocations for affordable housing are horribly resourced. I think the concept should be flipped. I'd like to see 90% of the new housing that's built in the city be affordable housing. And I want to address what HUD is calling affordable housing, because according to HUD, affordable housing has extremely low, very low, low and moderate income levels. And right now in the Kingston Metropolitan Statistical Area, which the city of Kingston is a part of, because of the influx of extremely higher incomed people over the last several years, our median income has gone up to $96,000 for a family of four. Now, the problem with the allocations, according to HUD, is that they use low and moderate income now for all the funding coming out of Freddie Mac. And all the language in all the housing initiatives is calling affordable housing low income and moderate income. But here's the problem. I just did some numbers. Low income for a family of four is $48,900, let's call it $49,000 a year to $77,000 a year. I'm rounding up just for evenness. And that is extremely high for what I know to be the incomes of families who are struggling just to be able to keep the lights on and additional pay their rent. We have a housing crisis. The city established an ETPA, but we need more affordable housing. So because of the influx of more affluent homeowners and renters, the demand pushed up the rents. People who have lived there their whole lives or long-term cannot no longer afford to live here. And the HUD definitions that we're using are way too high for affordable housing, and we are allocating way too little of the housing for that we can afford, which means it destroys the consistency and character of our community, of our Kingston that we've known and loved. People are leaving in droves. I know of a woman and her mom who will be homeless as of tomorrow. They lived here her whole life. She grew up here as a child. She went to school here. She's been active in a community ever since. So, I mean, and that's just one story. This has to stop. If we want to have a community that has character, where we know each other, where we have safety because the community has a character that we all love, then we have to stop building for the rich and enabling people to get very wealthy off of real estate. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any additional speakers in chambers? And if you're on Zoom and you'd like to speak, you can raise your hand.
Tanya Garment, 102 Ward Street. I would like to first give thanks for a really good document. I believe it's something I hope that the Common Council members will all spend the time. It's a large one, 162 pages, but it kind of takes you through the form-based code and some really important aspects of it. So I would like to take the opportunity to encourage Common Council members who haven't read through the entire thing to take the time and read through all the pages, as well as the report that the Charette Week report is also a really good one to really catch up. There were Common Council members at the public engagement opportunities, but there also were some that didn't go to any of them. So the members that didn't go to any of them and didn't take the opportunity to engage with their constituents during the public process, these are two really good sort of cheat sheets. I wanted to address infrastructure costs and managing them. I'm glad that it's addressed here in one of the mitigations that's listed. For that, we have been subsidizing basically sprawl development of the properties, the properties that will now be in the large lot and the conservation areas. They will not lose the character, the feel of being outside the buildings. The way that the buildings will be built will maintain a context-sensitive environment that is being built, but it will allow for more use of the buildings will be limited on those areas. They'll be more used. And that in turn will help to support the infrastructure for those places. And then in the more densely populated areas, making more use of that too will also support the heavier use on the infrastructure. Right now, as it is, if you think about, like, say, in the large lot areas, where there's one large house, maybe, not that many people living in it, no mix of uses, mostly single family. Think of that with the same size block as it is now. And if it was, some of them were a couple families sharing it. Maybe one of them had offices on the bottom floor. Maybe one of them was having an accessory dwelling unit built in. That would be more tax income from those same lots that are there now. You'd still have the same experience of walking
30
down the
seconds.
street. Okay, thanks. But you'd be able to pay for the same amount of trees, the same amount of sidewalk, the same amount of sewer lines that run underneath, the same amount of lighting. All that stuff costs money. As we have been doing it now, we've basically been subsidizing the sprawl of single-family only neighborhoods and their trips that they take to get to the stores. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go check in chambers one more time. Any other speakers in chambers? And then if you're on Zoom and would like to speak, please raise your hand. And it looks like there are no further speakers on Zoom either. So I'm going to close the public speaking portion of tonight. With the final reminder that written public comments will be accepted until April 10th. Full instructions, as well as the DGEIS itself, can be found on engagekingston.com/Kingston-forward. Thank you.